There are things out there. Creatures, monsters, ghouls and spirits. Beings that fall outside the realm of visible truth, beyond the confines of our basic reality. They lurk in the dark, haunt the recesses of our minds, and stir our curiosity in the unusual and weird. They are taboo topics, stories that we tell around the campfire and folklore passed down from our ancestors. We've been taught that these things don't exist, that they are merely myth and legend. Or are they? Welcome to the Occult Archives. I'm your host and spooky librarian, E.M. Moon, but feel free to refer to me as E. Here lies a space beyond all spaces, a library full of arcane information enough to drive any normal person mad. If you can think of it, if you can question it, the archives probably have what you seek. It's been way too long, but finally tonight's episode is part 2 of issue number 7 of 667 Children of the Beast. I hope you enjoy. Subject name, 7. So what you're telling me is that you all have superhero powers, and this ass over here was shooting fireballs at me because he thought that I might have been a demon or angel and had come here to kill all of you? Sam was eyeballing us all like we were nuts. Sort of. Violet flushed purple out of embarrassment. Sam just started laughing, hooting laughter that filled the whole house as he slapped his knee and rocked back in his chair. Y'all are funny. He wiped tears from his eyes before putting on a serious face. But I don't fucking buy it. That guy shot at my bike, and I don't easily forgive someone who pulls a gun on me. Sam patted his hip. I knew that was where he kept his 9mm. We're not lying, Sam. Violet stood up for the lot of us. Let me show you. She walked over to Sam with a weird look in her eye and held her hand out. In it was a gun that looked exactly like Sam's. What the... Is that my damn gun? Sam jumped up from his seat, ready to snatch it from her hand, but it was already back in its holster. Believe us now? She cocked her head to the side as she tapped her foot on the ground. I believe that you're a magician of some sort. You from Vegas? Sam arched a blonde brow as he eyed the rest of us. Actually, that would be us, but I'm not so sure you want to see the tricks we have up our sleeves. Kane's eyes flashed red, and a howling erupted right outside the window that Sam was standing in front of. He looked a little worried as he pointed a finger at Adam. You didn't shoot at me then. Does it look like I have a gun on me? Adam opened his jacket and spun around in a circle. You can pat me down if you like. Then you really can throw balls of fire. Sam looked like he was calming down a bit as he sat back down in his chair. Amongst other things. Adam seemed a bit cocky as he stood closer to Violet than I wanted him to. Fuck me. And you have powers like this, 7? He asked me with a curious look on his face. I took a deep breath and responded. I have powers, but not like theirs. It seems that we are all different. I scratched out a drawing on the chalkboard hanging from the wall near the living room, and a tire went clanging to the ground, causing Sam to jump. Well, I'll be damned. I don't understand it, but seeing it now, I can't deny it. Sam leaned forward to pick up the motorcycle tire and examine it. He could clearly see that it was real. This is why we came to help him. By chance, he was able to run into us again, so to speak, and I felt that it was my responsibility to help him. Violet's eyes were dark as she spoke. I couldn't figure out what she was thinking, but something looked like it was bothering her. She'd been acting strange ever since I came to tell her that Sam was back. Well, I thank you for that. There is no way I could have known how to help him with this. Sam turned the tire over in his lap before propping it up against the chair. Anyone hungry? Adam broke the awkward silence that had arisen. You buyin'? Sam cast him a slight grin. Already bought it. I got stuff to grill out, but we better get it from the car before it goes bad in this Louisiana heat. Adam stepped towards the door to retrieve our dinner. Even better. There's a grill out on the porch. Let me get it fired up. Sam pushed himself from the chair and went to assist him. Kane and Salome had breathed a sigh of relief and went back to their amorous ways, but Violet was just staring at the wall, biting at her thumb. Everything all right? I placed my hand on her waist and she jumped. I'm fine. Just worried about Adam. He's been out of sorts for the past few weeks and I can't figure out why. She leaned against me as I placed my arm around her shoulders. Well, have you asked him? I assumed she probably hadn't. In my own way, but he doesn't seem to want to talk. Things in Salem really got everyone's nerves racked, and he came back to New Orleans trying to act like nothing happened. Though, I feel like he's been doing that for weeks since his friend died. Violet opened up to me, turning to rest her head on my chest. It's hard losing someone you care about. He probably just needs time to heal. I assured her, running my finger along her jaw. She closed her eyes and just sighed. I know how that is all too well. Violet furrowed her brow before tightening her arms around my middle. Why don't you get washed up and rest? I'll handle food prep and help the guys get some burgers grilled. Just take it easy. I leaned in and gently brushed her lips with mine. She nodded and pulled away slowly before making her way to the bathroom to wash up. Tongs, plates, cheese, and ice-cold beers. I set everything down on the table next to the grill and popped the top off my beer before handing Kane a soda. Thanks, man. Kane took the can and started drinking. He and Sam had struck up a conversation about the farm, so I took the opportunity to finally talk to Adam. How was town? I handed him a beer before taking a swig of my own. Baton Rouge is nice. Not my first time, though. Just needed to get out for a while. Adam didn't make eye contact with me as he drank. I hear that. Sometimes it's good to get away. How you holding up after Salem? I popped the question and waited for the anger, but Adam was calm. I'm fine. He nodded and took another sip. So I pushed the subject. Violet doesn't seem to think so. Her name caused him to flinch and he leaned closer to me. Violet is always anxious about something. Adam wasn't going to give. She told me about your friend. I'm really sorry, dude. Violet shouldn't be telling my business to anyone. Adam seemed mad now. Maybe I'd made it worse. She only did because I pushed her. She's worried about you. I understand what it's like to lose a friend. I didn't want him to be mad at Violet. I'm okay. Shit has been hard during all of this. It's more than just Nate's death. Adam readjusted himself in his seat as he spoke. Girl troubles? I tried to make light of the situation, but apparently I had hit the nail on the head. I don't really want to talk about it. Adam shook his head and set his beer down. You don't have to, but it may make you feel better. I shouldn't have been prying, but if I could get down to the bottom of it, maybe it would take some of the stress off of Violet. Adam grunted. Her name is Jessica. We were together a little over 2 years before she decided that she wanted to be a news anchor. Adam drained the rest of his beer and I grabbed him an unopened one from the table. Anyone I would recognize? I asked, nursing my drink. Unless you watch WWL TV in New Orleans, probably not. I thought she was so much like me, that we had so much in common, but it turned out I was wrong. She only liked the fame and notoriety, not me. We broke up a few months ago, but I'm having a hard time with it still, especially now that all of this is going on. Adam held up an ungloved hand so I could see the lava coursing through it. You shouldn't let it get to you, Adam. Your past is in the past. You're a different person now. I spoke the truth. Maybe, but it's still hard to let go. I want to move on, but I keep thinking about the heartbreak. I thought that maybe she was it, that she was the one I would be with for the rest of my life, but she wasn't. What does that say about my judgment? I was a fucking whore, Seven. I just slept with anything that had a... Well, you get the point. I thought that Jessica was the final frontier, though, but she wasn't even close. I don't know if I feel like doing that all over again. Adam spilled his guts to me as he drank his second beer, or maybe he had had more to drink than I thought. This isn't the end, dude. We're 30. We have many years ahead of us to find the right one. You just have to let go of the past. I gave him some points of wisdom. I don't know. Adam hung his head, his lips poised on the beer bottle. But here's a question that I have for you. Why are you pushing Violet away? She makes it sound like you both are rather close, but you haven't talked to her about this? I figured that he hadn't, but I had to ask. Not her problem. She has enough going on as it is, and I don't need to burden her with my issues. Adam's brow was furrowed as he finished his beer off. But she doesn't know that's why. You've been avoiding her. I didn't know if Violet wanted me to play mediator, but I felt like she needed to know something. She deserved to know. Did Violet put you up to this or something? You're asking an awful lot of questions. Adam suddenly shut down and eyed me suspiciously. Well, no. She seemed upset for the better part of the day, and I wanted to know why. She mentioned your behavior, and I figured I'd try to ease some of the tension. I may not know any of you that well yet, but I feel something for Violet. I just don't want to see her hurting. I tried to convey to him my reasons for talking to her in the first place. None of us do. Adam glared at me before excusing himself from his seat. Just tell her I'm fine. We're all working through our own shit, and she shouldn't be concerned with mine. She needs to worry about herself. He set his bottle on the table with a clank before wandering out to the pasture, a cigarette in hand. Subject number 001, Violet Eve. Those hamburgers smell wonderful. I stepped out of the house, freshly showered and ready to eat. I wanted to forget about everything that Kane and Adam had said earlier. Salome was a bit less harsh, but even she wanted me to be careful. I appreciated the warning, but I was going to do my own thing regardless. There was no proof that I needed to be careful of Seven at all, and I felt like maybe there was more to it, but nobody was talking. I was just going to keep on doing what I was doing. We've got a plate ready for you. Seven handed me a plate with a hamburger, potatoes mixed with salad cream, and baked beans. Thank you. I took a seat next to him as everyone chatted away with their supper. Everyone but Adam. Adam said he wasn't hungry, went out to the barn. Seven pointed off the porch, and I tried not to show that I was becoming fed up. Adam and I had become so close. We practically transformed together, yet he had barely said anything to me lately, and there was no getting him to talk. This isn't how I wanted any of us to be. We were supposed to be in this together, but I felt like he just kept avoiding me and would only really talk to Kane or Henri. He's a grown man. He'll eat when he's ready. I took a bite of my hamburger as I stared out at the barn. We finished our meal up, and Kane went with Sam to help put the new tire on his motorcycle, while Salome just hung out by the horses, hesitant to touch any of them. Adam had come out of the barn and was just sitting out front with his phone in his hand, not talking to anyone. You want to go for a walk? Seven had been assisting Sam, but had come to check on me. Honestly, I want to get the fuck out of here. I just feel uncomfortable. I glanced at Adam, and I knew that Seven saw. Adam didn't really want to talk to me. He just said that you need to worry about yourself. Seven was chewing on a toothpick as he spoke. Like I don't do that anyway? I scoffed, really thinking about what Seven said. Apparently he had spoken to Adam. For someone that had been so concerned about me getting too close to Seven, concerned enough to warn me to be careful because he cared, he didn't want me to return the favor. It seemed hypocritical to me. You can't make people open up to you if they don't want to, and Adam seems like he doesn't want to. I'm not saying he's cutting you out entirely, but he has to deal with his own shit. Don't worry about him. Let's focus on us. The last few words of Seven's sentence caught me off guard. Us? I posed the one-word question. Well, I am sort of hoping to get to know you better. If my advances haven't shown that enough, I really like you, Vi. I've never met another woman like you before, and now that I am what I am, I don't think I ever will. You've helped me more than you could ever know. I'm not going to lie. When I saw you with Adam, I was kind of disappointed that you were taken. But now that I know the truth, I don't want to let this opportunity go. Seven expressed his feelings for me. I'm sure I was slack-jawed. What are you saying, Seven? Was he asking me out on a date? Now that we don't live far from each other, I was wondering if maybe you'd like to go out sometime. Seven seemed shy as he asked. That could be a possibility. A date. A freaking date. When was the last time someone had asked me out for anything? Adam didn't think you'd say yes, but it was worth a shot. Seven looked as if I had rejected him, but that was hardly it. Why did Adam think he could speak on my behalf? Yes, I would love to. I smiled. Adam had no idea what I really wanted anyway. You maybe want to go do something now? We could ride into Baton Rouge and get a drink or something. I know it's on the later side, but no one is really doing anything. Seven was really asking me out on a date. I glanced back at Adam, who was now sitting on the fence with the phone to his ear, probably talking to Josiah. Let's go, but first, will you tell me your real name? I had wanted to ask that question since Adam brought that point up. My real name? You don't believe that my birth name is Seven? He laughed, giving me that pearly white grin. Hardly. I laughed back. It's Asher. He seemed a little ashamed of his name, but I liked it. Well, Asher, I would love for you to take me out to drinks. I think I need to get away for a bit myself. I extended my hand for him to help me from my chair. Just don't go telling anyone my real name. I need to keep up appearances. He smiled slyly as we quietly walked towards the crossover for a night of drinking and getting to know one another. Do you feel bad that we didn't tell anyone we were leaving? Asher walked with me, arm in arm, down the sidewalks of Baton Rouge. We ended up taking Sam's pickup truck that was parked in a side garage and had an easier time of sneaking away. Not really. They were all preoccupied with other things and probably won't miss us. The first part was true, but the second part maybe not so much. I just hated that I seemingly didn't have control over my own life anymore and had decided to be rebellious and not give a damn about the consequences. I'm enjoying myself either way. You do need to get out more and embrace this life that was given to us, even if it seems like total shit sometimes. Asher steered me towards a tavern called the Bulldog. And that is what I am doing, not giving a damn. He held the door open for me and we slipped inside. It was rather quiet inside the tavern, but I think I preferred it that way. We took a seat at the bar and Asher ordered us 2 beers before starting up a conversation. So, tell me a little bit about yourself prior to all of this. Asher clinked his beer glass against mine. I generally hated talking about myself, but I wanted to tell him everything. He seemed like he wanted more from me than just a few heated kisses. I delved into a story about my mother, about my life, what had gone on in my adult years, and what had led up to my transformation. So you're originally from Belfast, Ireland? I could tell the accent was Irish, but I didn't know what part. Asher had ordered us another round of beers as we conversed. Sort of. The thought had just struck me, something that I hadn't told anyone and had been keeping to myself since Salem. What do you mean, sort of? Asher was curious. I haven't told anyone yet. Promise me that you won't mention it to anybody else. I wanted to make sure I could really trust him. He swore, and I went on. I recently found out that I was born here in the States, in Louisiana. I buried my mouth in my glass. You're an American? And you didn't know this? He seemed almost as surprised as I was. I'm not even sure what I am. I was born here, possibly at the El Cipher Clinic in New Orleans, and then we moved back to Ireland. My mother had come here for work and to escape an abusive relationship, then had me in the process. I got all of this information from my file. It felt good to finally talk about it, but it still stung. Why hadn't my mother ever told me any of this? The files you found in Salem. Did you read mine? Asher's pupils dilated as he asked the question. I only read 2, mine and Missy's. I didn't have time to go over any of the others before you were finishing Adam's tattoo. They were on ancient floppy disks, and we haven't been able to find the right machine to read the rest. I explained. I would love to see mine when you get the chance to finally read them. I remember you mentioning that you were subject number 001. I wonder what number I am. Asher thought aloud. He had ordered us some dessert at the bar, and it had just arrived. Probably number 007. I laughed, and Asher's eyes lit up with the sound. Wouldn't that be appropriate? He smiled back, taking my hand in his before I even had a chance to take a bite of cheesecake. It was turning into a really nice night. I had almost forgotten about my stress from earlier, until the phone rang. Damn it, I cursed, looking down at the contact on my phone. It was Adam. They found us? Asher cast me a wistful look as I answered the phone. I held up my finger and walked towards the front door of the tavern before I answered. Hello? Where the hell are you? Adam's voice was gruff when he responded. Out? Seven took me out for drinks. I held my breath as I waited for him to respond. It's getting dark and we need you back here right now. There was a hint of tension in his voice, but I couldn't place the problem. Normally I would have come running when anyone on our side beckoned for me to, but not this time. No, I breathed. Just that one word and Adam went silent. No? He finally replied slowly. No, nothing is going on right now. Things are quiet and I'm finally having the first night where I am enjoying myself since I came to this fucking country. Josiah isn't around to tell me what to do, and you don't rule me either. You wanted me to worry about myself, so I am. My voice pitched in anger. I didn't even give Adam a chance to respond and hung up the phone before shutting the whole thing down. Everything okay? Asher could tell by the look on my face when I returned to the bar that I was clearly not happy. I'm great. Finally giving my happiness the attention it deserves. I scooted my bar stool closer to him and forced a weak smile. I'm glad that you're happy. Asher's voice was almost sultry as he leaned in and kissed me on the lips. I could get used to this. Subject name, Adam Bodine. I didn't appreciate Violet telling anyone about my business, but I was probably going to have to tell Seven about it sooner or later if he joined the little team that we were slowly getting together. I was still unsure about him, but the fact that he had gone out of his way to try and mediate things between me and Violet was a step in the right direction. Everyone had split up after dinner, and I was watching as Kane helped Sam fix the bike that I had busted when the phone rang. Did you find anything on your excursion earlier? Josiah was on the other end when I answered. Sort of. I found out a little bit about two of the victims that Seven had mentioned, but I'm not seeing any sort of correlation yet. I'm waiting to hear back from the county clerk's office in Essex for more information. I explained as I glanced over at Seven and Violet alone on the porch. Was one of them the man with the tiger tattoo? Josiah asked. No, the wolf attack and the cobra bite. Why? Did you find something? I queried. I'll email it to you so you can give it a read. I tried doing some digging on Seven himself and found out his real name. I'll send that along with what I found. There is a link between him and the man with the tiger tattoo. Josiah had something for me. All right, let me let you go so I can take a look at it. I'll call you back in a bit. I wandered off behind the barn as I hung up the phone and waited for an email notification. I opened it up when it came through and began reading an obituary for a Jonathan Maxwell. It entailed that he was roughly the same age as the lot of us, a few years younger, and had originally been from Cambridge like Seven. It didn't tell me much, so I clicked on the next link Josiah had sent, and it opened up to the man's public records. Public arrest records. Jonathan Madcat Maxwell had multiple charges over the years, from petty theft all the way up to illegally carrying a firearm and drug dealing. He had been involved in a gang, as the police labeled it, called the Angels of Death, and had been arrested multiple times over the past 10 years in relation to the group. His mugshot was much different from the man I saw getting tattooed that day in Salem. He was a good bit heavier than what I had seen, with black hair and not as many tattoos. If I hadn't had the comparison, I never would have known they were the same man. But what was the relationship between this criminal and Seven? I went on to the third link that Josiah had sent me and opened it up to a news article. Local men arrested in Northeast drug trafficking ring. Several men in association with the biker gang Angels of Death were arrested on suspicion of drug trafficking early Monday morning. Jonathan Madcat Maxwell, Raymond Blackwell, and Asher Seven Cole were taken into custody when police intercepted their vehicle due to a tip from an anonymous caller. Several bricks of cocaine and containers full of methamphetamines were confiscated during the arrests, and the men were sent to Suffolk County Jail. They are currently being held on bond, and the police are delving deeper into this investigation to see just how far it goes. Update. Information has been given to the police implicating Asher Cole as the ringleader of this particular operation. The DA's office is looking for a plea in this situation and hopes to gain more information on the case. I knew there was a reason that I didn't feel right about Seven. Or Asher, since I now know his real name. Had the person who tipped off the police about Asher's status been Jonathan Maxwell? If it had, what was Asher doing tattooing the man that could have possibly given him years of jail time? Before I had a chance to really mull all this information over in my head, my phone rang again.
Mr. Gilmore, this is Tammy Willard from the Essex County Clerk's office.
Finally, more pieces to this puzzle. Yes, Miss Willard. Were you able to find me more information on Elizabeth Marks? I peeked around the corner of the barn to see everyone still working on the bike, but I didn't see Violet or Seven.
I did.
She sounded hesitant, but went on.
I discovered why her files weren't complete. Since she had been a government worker at some point, a lot of her files had been pulled to keep things quiet, I suppose, but I was able to gain access to it in its entirety.
Go on, I urged as she paused in her speech.
Elizabeth Marks is her maiden name, but she was formerly Elizabeth Wilkes, married to Roger Wilkes. She was his wife at the time of their arrest in 2000 for child neglect. I guess the state wanted to try and hide the fact that a former social worker had been abusing the system like that. And the children. She received a suspended sentence and the charges were dropped down, but Mr. Wilkes served in full. After his release, the two got a divorce and moved on from one another.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They had been married. There was the connection I was looking for, but I still didn't have an answer as to how both of them had ended up in Seven's tattoo chair. Do you have anything you can give me on that particular case? I'd like to look into it more. I tried to sound professional as I spoke.
I do. Most of it's public record now, but I can email it to you.
Miss Willard was just a peach. Great. I gave her my address and got off the phone. I waited impatiently for the email to come through and opened it up to go over a few more links. I read through an article that was dated in 2004, releasing the names of the children that had been relocated from the Wilkes care. Joanna Myers, Tina Myers, Jonathan Maxwell, and Asher Cole. The avalanche of information instantly froze my brain. 3 victims of Seven's newly discovered abilities all in one terrible case. A foster brother, a foster mother, and a foster father, all dead after he had tattooed them. I wanted there to be doubt in this situation, but it wasn't looking good for Seven. He obviously had been aware of who he was tattooing, even if he claimed to not know what his art was now capable of. Had he murdered them intentionally? Or had it just been one of those weird, fucked-up coincidences that we seem to be running into? My gut was telling me the former as I bounded out into the drive and pulled Salome aside, since she was the only one that wasn't preoccupied. I need to talk to you. I led her to the porch as she looked on at me with curiosity. What's wrong? Her nostrils were flaring as she spoke. I knew she could pick up on my angst. Long story short, I've been doing some sleuthing into Seven's murder victims. Accidents. This wasn't intentional. Even she defended him like Violet did. I think that maybe it was. I detailed to her what I had found out through the county clerk's office in Essex, what Josiah had given me, and then showed her the email that Miss Willard had sent. Salome's eyes went wide and she put her hand to her mouth.
Do you think that he was aware of his powers before all of this?
She seemed like she was starting to hyperventilate as she spoke. I don't know. I mean, it would have been at least 16 years since he would have seen his foster parents, and this Mad Cat dude looked nothing like he did when they were arrested 10 years ago, but it just doesn't add up. I shook my head, looking around for any sign of Violet.
We need to tell Kane and Violet.
Salome nodded, looking out to her boyfriend as he and Sam finished fixing the motorcycle. Where is she? I would love to show her this and prove that I was right, but I didn't want to rub it in. I just wanted her to be safe.
I saw her, walking down the drive with Seven.
Salome averted her gaze from me, and I knew that she was hiding something. What aren't you telling me, Sal? She knew something that I clearly didn't.
Kane and I saw Violet and Seven kissing earlier today, and it wasn't the first time. She said he kissed her last night, too.
Salome grimaced as she spoke. I paused. I think I had possibly interrupted that kiss and hadn't even known it. Did they leave, Sal? Did you see them leave? My heart was racing now as I demanded an answer. I don't know. Salome just shook her head as I sprinted down the drive and began looking for the two of them. Maybe they had just gone for a walk and were down near the road, but as I passed a side garage, I noticed that the door was open and nothing was inside. They had left. I fumbled for my phone in my pocket and quickly dialed Violet's number, trying not to sound like I was freaked out as she answered on the other end. Hello? Where the hell are you? My question came out extremely aggressive. Out? 7 took me out for drinks, she responded without a hint of panic in her voice. It's getting dark and we need you back here, right now. I knew there was tension in my voice, but I didn't care. No. She was defiant. I didn't know what to say. No? I finally replied slowly. No. Nothing is going on right now. Things are quiet and I'm finally having the first night where I'm enjoying myself since I came to this fucking country. Josiah isn't around to tell me what to do and you don't rule me either. You wanted me to worry about myself, so I am. And she hung up the phone. That son of a bitch. Even if he wasn't conscious of the murders his powers had committed, he was sure conscious of how to use my words against me. What the fuck had he said to her? I came jogging back up the drive to see Salome and Kane standing side by side on the front porch, but there was no sign of Sam. She fucking left with him. I told her she needed to come back, but she refused and hung up on me. I stopped at the front porch and lit up a cigarette, if I could even breathe regularly enough to smoke it. Calm down, Adam. Even if he did intentionally kill those people, we still don't know the whole story. His foster parents abused him, and his own brother sold him out. He seems like he isn't the same person that he used to be, but vengeance can be a difficult thing to understand. Salome defended him. I had done horrible things too. I had changed, but there was something about this situation that begged for more answers. Where's Sam? I need to talk to him. I hopped up on the porch to walk inside. He's gone, Adam. Left down the side road while you were looking for Violet. Said he had a meeting to get to. Kane was now visibly shaken. We're going to have to find her then. I can't just leave her out there alone with 7. Asher. If anything, we need a goddamn explanation. I pulled the keys to the crossover from my pocket and readied myself to leave. How the hell are we going to find her, though? I don't think she's going to answer your calls. Kane was doubtful. Let's just get in the fucking car. I'll handle it. Salome may not have believed that 7 was wrong in all of this, but Violet was more important to her than her lack of judgment. Subject number 001. Violet Eve. Asher and I had moved from the tavern out into the streets. He told me that he wanted to take me somewhere, but he wouldn't say where. I generally wasn't a huge fan of surprises, but I knew that he wouldn't let anything happen to me. We were just strolling quietly down the road when I got a text message. Where are you, Vi? It was Salome. I couldn't lie to her. Besides, she wasn't the one I was annoyed with. Baton Rouge. We had drinks at a tavern and now he's taking me somewhere as a surprise. I knew I could trust her not to say anything to Adam. Will you let me know when you get there and tell me all about where he took you? I want all the details. Salome was a much better friend than Missy had ever been. She trusted me enough to make my own decisions, but still cared about my well-being. I'll send you a text and tell you where I am. Better safe than sorry, but I don't think there's anything to worry about. I put my phone to sleep and slipped it back in my pocket as Asher led me across the street to where the truck was parked. He held the door open for me as I hopped in the car, and the two of us set off down the road towards my surprise. We left the city and headed back in the direction of the farmhouse. We were entering a more rural area, and Asher took me down a side road that led to a huge house set back in the countryside. Where are we? I had been expecting maybe a moonlit stroll by the river or some special music venue, but this wasn't even close. The clubhouse. He smiled at me as he parked the truck next to a row of motorcycles. It clicked for me then. Sam's vest, the Winged Reaper. He was in a motorcycle club. Sam's a biker, yeah? I asked. A tiny knot had formed in my stomach, but I tried to ignore it. Yeah, you told me about you, now I want you to know about me.
Asher got out of the car and helped me from my seat. The crickets chirped all around us as we walked towards the front of the house, hand in hand, before pausing on the porch.
I want to be honest with you. I haven't always walked the straight and narrow. I grew up in foster care, and it wasn't a good experience. I rebelled a lot in my teens, and when I was legally an adult, I met Sam. He sort of took me in and showed me a different life with the club. Got me my first bike, helped take care of me. He was more of a father to me than anyone had ever been. But I screwed up. Me and a foster brother of mine got caught up in a drug deal that we were not supposed to have any part in. There were a few guys in the club doing some illegal shit that Sam was never okay with, and my brother and I got wrapped up in all of it. We ended up getting arrested. Come to find out, I was the only one that didn't know about all the drugs in the car. My brother named me as the ringleader in hopes of getting a reduced sentence, even though I had nothing to do with it. Sam was able to get my sentence cut down on a technicality due to an incredible lawyer, and I only served 3 years before I was paroled. After that, I wanted to really walk the straight and narrow, and tried to go to school in Cambridge and get away from the life that had almost taken me down. But I couldn't make it work. School was too expensive, and finding work the way I look was almost impossible. But Sam found me again. He set me up in the shop, and we made a deal. If I worked hard, he would help me get back into school if I wanted, or I could tattoo on a more permanent basis. I was going for art anyway, so I agreed. You pretty much know the rest.
The story was rather sad, but I now had more respect for Asher and Sam, and oddly more trust. We hadn't even begun to start a relationship, but he was already airing out his dirty laundry and being honest with me up front. I'm sorry that you had to go through life that way. That's terrible. But look at you now, a new lease on life. Even though this existence has dealt you a shitty hand, you never stopped trying to improve yourself once you realized you were going down the wrong path. I pulled him in for a hug, and he embraced me tightly, burying his face in my purple hair.
That means a lot to me. Most women would have headed in the other direction knowing that the guy they could possibly be dating is a felon.
He screwed up his mouth as he thought about his words. It's in your past. Your actions now have proved that people can change. No one is inherently bad, Asher. His name still felt weird rolling off my tongue, but I knew I could get used to it. Asher kissed me again. It felt nice to really be wanted by someone, especially someone who respected me enough to be honest.
Let's go meet the guys.
He knocked on the door and it opened to reveal Sam and an open entryway.
I was wondering where you two ran off to. Come on in and meet the gang. They're going to love you.
He waved us inside. A weird beeping in my pocket reminded me that I had to text Salome back and let her know where I was. Meeting Sam at the clubhouse. Phone is dying, but I'm safe. Love you. I shut the phone down to conserve the battery as Sam led us into a room with a large table in the middle, surrounded by at least a dozen or so men.
These are the boys.
Sam ushered towards the table.
The Angels of Death. Subject name, Adam Bodine. Has she texted you back yet? I called over my shoulder to Salome right before her phone beeped with a text.
She says that she's meeting Sam at the clubhouse and her phone is dying, but she's safe.
Salome read me the message. The clubhouse. Like a biker club? I remembered that Sam had been wearing a vest, but I didn't get to see the patch on it. Did any of you get a chance to see the patch on the back of Sam's vest? I kept driving towards Baton Rouge, but I had a feeling that Violet wasn't in the city anymore. I did. We talked about it. He said he's the founder of a club called the Angels of Death, but they aren't involved in any sort of illegal activity, whatever that means. Kane responded, gesturing with his hands. With a name like that, I was so sure they weren't involved with any sort of violent criminal activity. That's the gang that Seven was with when he got arrested. This doesn't look good. I made a U-turn at the next road and sped back towards the farmhouse. Where are you going now? Salome asked as she gripped the seat behind me. Back to the farm. We can't just drive around and hope we spot her. I'm going to give Henri a call and see if he can find her. I'm sure I broke a few laws getting back to the house, but I didn't have the time to care. I tore out of the car and through the screen door, Violet's laptop bag in my hand. Kane and Salome followed shortly behind as I set the computer up on the coffee table and opened up a video chat with Henri's handle. "Brother, how is Baton Rouge?" Henri answered. He looked like he was in the Crescent City Shaman. "Perfect. No time for vacation stories, Henri. I need your help." I'm sure he could tell that I was not in the mood to chit-chat. "What's going on, Adam? I see Kane and Salome, but where is Violet?" Henri knew that something was wrong. "I'm going to send you some things real quick. No time to explain." I had already pulled my email up and forwarded all the information I had gathered from the day. "Check your email." I breathed heavily as I impatiently waited for him to catch up. "I don't understand. Has Seven been lying to us?" Henri's dark eyes seemed even darker as he spoke while reading. I still don't know, but Violet left with him without telling anyone and is currently at the clubhouse of the Angels of Death. We don't know where that is, and she isn't really speaking to me at the moment." I turned away sheepishly. "You've been avoiding her like the plague, Adam. What do you expect from her? But what do you need me to do?" Henri was ready to help. "Find her. You have to have some sort of magical something to pinpoint where she is." I knew enough about magic to know that Henri would have an answer. "I would need something of hers, but we could try scrying." I could tell that Henri was packing his things up and readying himself to head back to Cassandra's. "I'm sure she has a hairbrush or something in her bedroom. Get back to the house and then call me back." Henri nodded at me and I ended the chat. And now we wait. I fidgeted in my seat. We were losing time, but I knew that Henri had no issue driving fast. He had the speeding tickets to prove it. "I got some hair." Henri had called me back in a little under 20 minutes and was sitting down in his room with a plastic bag, a pendulum, and a map of New Orleans and the surrounding area. He took a few strands of hair from the bag and wrapped them around the crystal before letting it slack over the map. We all collectively held our breath as the crystal began to swing, Henri holding tight as it tried to pinpoint Violet's location. I watched as it spun wildly before finally dropping onto the map, but it didn't stay there very long. The pendulum had just touched the surface of the table before it was yanked from Henri's hand and slung across the room. "What the hell was that?" I asked, leaning into the computer screen to get a better look. "Don't ask me. I've never seen it do that before." Henri crouched out of his seat to pick the crystal up and try again. It began spinning and spinning over the map once more, but when it dropped a second time, it slung itself in the opposite direction. Why isn't this working? I was starting to get anxious now. "It's not an exact science, Adam, but I've literally never seen this before." Henri folded up the map, grabbed his phone, and we watched as the picture on the screen bobbed up and down as he ran to the dining room of the mansion. "What is it, Henri?" I could hear Josiah's voice before I even saw him. Henri set the phone up in front of him as Josiah came into view and the map was placed on the table. "We're trying to find Violet, but scrying isn't working." Henri decided to try for a third time. "Where is she?" Josiah leaned into the phone so that I could see him better. "She went out with Seven, Asher, and she didn't exactly give us detailed directions to where she was going." I was basically beside myself at this point. "I don't understand why this blasted thing won't find her." Henri had tried again, but the pendulum had been slung clear across the dining room. "It may have something to do with what you all are." Josiah was at a loss for words. "Or what Violet is. Her powers of altering reality might have something to do with it," Henri suggested as he streaked by the camera in search of the pendulum. Of course. Had it been anyone else, Violet could find them, but her powers could make it virtually impossible to find her. "She's between worlds." Henri went slack-jawed as he fully accepted the notion. "I could possibly try some trance work and find her that way, but..." Josiah's words were cut short by the squeaking of the screen door. I looked up to see Violet and Seven laughing with one another as they entered the living room. I mouthed at the screen that I had to go, and Henri nodded. He recognized Violet's laugh. "Violet, you're back." Salome rushed to her as I shut the laptop and stuffed it back in its bag.
What's wrong? You look upset.
Violet's expression changed as she let Salome hug her. We were just worried because you left without telling anyone. I made sure that my voice was heard, and Violet focused on me.
I'm a grown-ass woman, Adam Paudine. Seven asked me out on a date, and I jumped at the opportunity. I'm not going to live my life under lock and key because someone else tells me to.
Violet snapped, letting go of Salome. A date. She had said yes after all. I felt my body warming up from the fire deep within and excused myself from the couch to get a glass of water and quell the kiln in my belly.
Next time, just let us know, okay? I was worried about you.
Salome fiddled with Violet's hair as she spoke. I promised her I'd keep her safe, and I wasn't lying. She's safe with me. Seven tried to assure Salome, but I still wasn't so sure myself, nor was I sure how to broach the subject of the deaths of his foster parents and brother.
He just took me to the clubhouse for the Angels of Death. I got to meet the members and learn a little bit more about Seven. He wants to talk with all of you and get something off his chest.
Violet led him over to the sofa, and he sat down next to Kane. Seven went on to tell us about his upbringing, about his foster parents and the biker gang, about being arrested for something he wasn't even actually part of. He said that he had to be honest with all of us, like we had been with him. And my real name is Asher Cole, by the way, he confessed. But we already knew that. I hoped that nobody would bring up what I had found just yet, and there was a reason I trusted them. Not a word was spoken about it. Sam should be home soon, but I'm going to get a shower in and then maybe we can all find something to watch on TV and just chill. Seven nodded at me and I found myself nodding back. Everything would just have to wait. It wasn't time to talk about Seven's past because he had seemingly told us everything. But we still didn't know if these accidental deaths were really accidents at all.
Subject number 001. Violet Eve.
You have fun?
Kane asked, and I nodded while scooting in between him and Salome on the floor. We had found an old horror film on the telly and had settled in for the night. We needed to make a decision about Seven, and it was something that was talked about between me and him as we had left the meeting earlier. I asked if he wanted to come back to the mansion and meet Henri and the rest of the council, but he wasn't sure. He didn't want to leave Sam, but he seemed like he didn't want to leave me even more. My mind was wandering off to what our next step would be when Adam poked his head through the front door and called out to me.
Can I talk to you for a minute?
He actually wanted to talk? What a surprise. I nodded and got up from the floor to follow him out the door. What's up? I was still very irritated with Adam, but I had to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I wanted to apologize for how I've been acting lately.
He started as he led me off towards the barn. No need to apologize. We all deal with things differently. No, you should apologize, but I was too much of a pushover to admit that was how I felt.
There's every need to apologize. I shut you out because I'm dealing with my own shit, and I didn't want to get you wrapped up in it too. You need to worry about yourself and not what I have going on. It doesn't have anything to do with what we all are going through, so you shouldn't be concerned. They're my issues, and I need to handle it.
He went on to explain, albeit a bit convoluted. So that was it. He just didn't want me worrying any more than I already did. I may not have known Nate like you did, but I think we all felt the loss at least a little bit. You have every right to be handling it the way that you do. I can't fault you for that. I softened as we entered the barn and Adam flicked on a big fluorescent light.
But it isn't just Nate. It's loss in general for me right now. I'm not one to go talking about my problems with people, and there were things that happened with me before we ever met. I didn't think that I needed to get you involved with my emotions.
Adam propped himself up on a workbench and lit a cigarette. Talk to me, yeah? You don't have to keep things from me or anyone else. We are a family now, and we fight for each other, supernaturally or not. I tried to hop my tiny self up on the workbench, but Adam easily lifted me up and set me down.
Remember the ex-girlfriend I told you about?
He asked before passing me a smoke. The Satanist? I laughed, accepting the flame from Adam's finger.
Yeah, well, she's actually Jessica Blanchard.
He stared off into a darkened section of the barn. The news anchor? I remembered seeing her on the broadcast for the mysterious webbing right before we met Naomi.
Except when we were dating, she was a groupie for my band and someone who attended all of my functions at the community center for the kids. She one day decided that we were heading in different directions and dumped my stupid ass. Really, she just liked the fame and the attention that came with what I did with my art and wanted more. So she became a freaking news anchor so all of New Orleans could see her.
Adam didn't look at me when he spoke. You loved her, didn't you? I asked, and he just nodded.
I thought she was it. I thought that she and I were going to make this love thing work and be together for the rest of our lives, but I was fucking wrong. I didn't always treat women well, Violet. I was a slut and a womanizer, for lack of better words, and I changed my ways with her because I wanted something more than just a casual fuck. I guess this is my karma.
Adam shook his head before lighting up another cigarette. Maybe it is your karma, but this isn't the end. There are plenty of other women out there. She isn't special. I was a bit bitter about what this woman had done to Adam.
Who was going to want to date a damn monster?
Adam held up his hands. They were two big balls of fire as he shook them in the dim light of the barn. He wasn't dealing well with his appearance any more than I was. Another one of the 667, maybe? I was on autopilot. I wanted to say something else, but my mind kept wandering back to Asher.
Maybe. Who would accept a freak but another freak?
Adam laughed, but I knew he didn't really find it funny. Hey, we all have our quirks, I joked, but I understood what he felt. Relationships had never worked for me. I always got myself involved with callous narcissists and got sucked into their manipulative ways. Now that I looked the way that I looked, dating was going to be far more difficult.
How are things with you and Asher?
Adam asked a question that I hadn't been expecting. Good, I suppose. I shrugged, turning away from Adam as I spoke. It isn't really anything, though.
Yet.
Adam finally looked at me when he spoke. There was something in those hazel eyes of his, something different than what looked back at me when I was with Asher. I talked to him about coming back with us. One more person on our side would do us some good. I kicked my legs as they dangled above the ground and just stared at my feet.
I need to talk to you about something.
Adam switched the direction of our conversation, but I assumed it would have something to do with Asher.
Josiah and I did some digging earlier today into the people that died due to Asher's abilities and found some rather unsettling stuff.
Adam was deliberate with his words, as if he thought that saying them any other way might upset me. I had been so wrapped up in helping Asher that I hadn't done my due diligence with the people that he had inadvertently killed, and I felt rather irresponsible for it. What did you find? I was just going to listen this time and try not to argue.
The man with the snake bite, the woman who was eviscerated by a wild animal, and the guy that was supposedly attacked by a wildcat. He knew them, Vi.
Adam waited for the information to sink in. Of course he did, Adam. They were his clients.
That much was obvious. Violet, they were his foster parents and foster brother.
Adam leaned in closer to me as he spoke. His brother that sold him out to the police. The terrible foster upbringing. He had killed the three of them? Do you think it was purposeful? I asked, not sure what to think at the moment. Maybe they were unintentional manifestations, like with the kitten earlier and the dragon at the house.
I don't know. Maybe we should ask him.
Now I was starting to understand why he was so worried about me. Maybe that weird feeling he had been having had actual merit. How the hell do you start a conversation like that, though? I mean, it had to be accidental, like he said. They all did him wrong, but I don't think he'd kill them. I swallowed hard. I mean, he didn't hurt me. He hasn't hurt any of us. He would have had the perfect opportunity to do so tonight. I was beginning to realize how recklessly I had been behaving since we arrived in Baton Rouge.
But you haven't wronged him. They did. People do terrible shit when they are abused, but it isn't an excuse. On top of that, if it was intentional, he lied to all of us about it.
Adam had a good point, but Asher had told us things tonight that could have deterred us from helping him. But none of those things had been murder. I was just going to say something else when a loud explosion rocked the barn. Instinctively, Adam grabbed me around the waist and hauled us out the back door of the building.
Wait here.
He pressed me against the frame of the barn and circled around the side. Another explosion went off and I ducked, covering my head. I had no idea what the hell was going on, but I peered around the corner to see Adam running towards me. What the hell was that? I tried to keep my voice and head down.
I don't know, but it doesn't look like anything out here was hit.
He pointed behind him at the house. Another loud boom almost shook us off our feet. I scrambled to keep myself upright as we heard barking coming from the opposite side of the barn. 2 large hounds came bounding from behind us, and one picked me up by the back of the shirt, while Adam ran alongside the other to the front drive.
What the fuck was that?
Kane and Salome were on the front porch, and Asher had just stepped out behind them.
I don't know any more than you do, man.
Adam snagged me from the hound's mouth and pulled me onto the porch with him while the 2 dogs stood guard at the steps. Another deafening boom shook the farmhouse, and we watched as dirt clods went spewing into the air just on the other side of the fence.
Are things falling from the sky?
Asher came up behind me and took me from Adam's side.
Or coming up from the ground.
No sooner had Adam spoke when a deep hole was punched in the middle of the drive, and this terrifying creature poked its head through like a damn gopher. A few smaller explosions rocketed around us before shadowed figures started climbing the fence and crawling from the cracks in the dirt.
I guess Asher will get to finally test those powers in combat.
Adam smirked before he flamed out. He was so into fight mode that he had burst the glamour I had made on his appearance. He stood before us like the giant dragon that he was, horns, scales, and all. Asher's eyes were bulging from his head as the shadows collected in front of us and the beast fully emerged from the hole.
Fucking demons.
Kane growled as a pack of hounds crept from the darkness, growling and spitting as they closed in on the shadows.
We come for the 7th son.
The demon opened its mouth and a voice like the pits of hell spewed out.
Not a fucking chance.
I stepped down the stairs so I was standing next to Adam. I assumed that he was talking about Asher.
Hand him over, and we will make your death quick and painful.
It turned its head to the side, and a haunting laugh echoed around us. Adam was practically grunting beside me, and before I could respond to the demon, he charged forward. The hounds took this as the signal to attack and began shredding the shadows around us. Adam gripped darkened figures by the face and tossed them aside as he tore his way through to the hulking demon still partially submerged in the ground. Salome ran past me and seized one of the shadows by the throat. It melted into an inky pool of black oil as she went on to the next. There were even more of them coming as I stood frozen on the stairs. Kane had called in the rest of the pack as Asher stepped up behind me and tried to pull me back to the porch. "What are you doing? We have to fight!" The shock had finally wore off, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my body. "You'll get hurt. Stay here." He pushed me up against the side of the house, and that is when I realized what he had been doing this whole time. He had drawn a bunch of hands on the side of the house with a paintbrush that had been sitting on the porch alongside several cans of paint. Strange fingers reached out from the wall and held me fast, while Asher went down the stairs with a piece of rebar that had been just inside the door. Kane had already gone out to direct the hounds in combat, and all of my friends were now mid-battle with an army of demons and a hideous creature that was at least twice the size of Kane. And I couldn't do anything. Physically, anyway. It was dark save for the light on the porch, and from my vantage point, I couldn't see the details of a single person. But the third eye could. I switched my regular vision to psychic mode, and the drive in front of me illuminated with the purple hue. Everyone was fighting, throwing blow after blow at the shadows, except they weren't shadows now. Countless human-sized locusts buzzed about silently as everyone tried to fend them off and get to the boss in the middle. Adam was the closest, and I watched him torch one of the locusts before he was finally up front with the beast. He lunged forward to shove his blazing hot fists into the creature's belly when one of the locusts snapped past his feet and Adam lost his balance, tumbling into the deep hole in the earth from where the beast had emerged. "Adam!" I screamed as I fought the hands that held me to the wall, but he had already disappeared from the front line.
Subject name, Asher 7 Cole. I had never drawn so much in my life. My undetailed weapons weren't doing me any good, and I resorted to just beating everything that came my way with the piece of rebar that Sam kept by the door in case he needed it. One of the shadows hugged me around the middle and tried pulling me towards the giant hole in the center of the drive when I heard Violet call out.
Adam!
She screamed, and I watched as he was thrown off track by one of the shadows and tumbled headlong into the pit. I drew the toe of my boot through the dirt, trying to quickly draw out something before the demon dragged me into the pit with Adam. It had almost gotten me to the hole when I slung myself sideways with all my might, and the ground fell away as the earth cleaved beneath my feet. The shadow tumbled through the break in the drive, taking several more with it as I raced over to the pit behind the colossal creature and began scribbling away in the dirt. I wasn't going to let this thing take me. If I was indeed the seventh son, it had to be talking about me. Adam was already gone, and that just left me and Cain. But I had spoken too soon. No less than 6 shadows melded together and picked Cain up off his hulking legs and tossed him like a boulder into the pit right next to me. I tried to reach out and grab him, but he was gone. The battle was still going on, so they had obviously not gotten what they came for, and I wasn't about to let them win. Subject name, Adam Bodine. I thought I was done for. I had blindly lunged for the biggest demon and hadn't seen one of those shadows coming from my right. It literally flipped me into the pit the beast had crawled from like a damn linebacker, and I was falling. Until something broke that fall. There was just a chunk of root-wrapped earth hovering in the pit. I scrambled to keep myself on it, but I didn't know how to get back out. The walls of the hole were slick, and I couldn't claw my way back up. The distance was too far to jump, even with superhuman strength. I tried climbing up again when something else plummeted down the pit, and another mass of dirt caught it as I tried to reach out and stop its fall. "These things are no joke," I heard Cain call out from beneath me, and I crouched down, holding up a flaming hand to light the darkness below. I know, and the only ones left up there are Salome and Asher, but I didn't see Violet. I was hoping that she was somewhere safe. "Asher has her trapped up against the house. I think he was trying to protect her, but she's kind of our ace in the hole," Cain grunted as I watched him pierce the slick walls of the tunnel and begin clawing his way up to me. "Going up?" I asked him as he climbed past and reached his hand out to me. He took hold of my jacket collar and tossed me effortlessly back up to solid ground. Salome was screaming as Cain appeared behind me and was instantly trailed by a pack of black wolves as he went to help his girlfriend.
Where is the seventh son? There is no need to hide from us.
The demon bellowed, and the ground around me shook. I sidestepped a shadow, sending it flailing into the pit as I circled the giant demon and found Asher behind him, furiously scribbling in the dirt with a piece of rebar, only pausing to thrust the metal through any shadows that got in his way. "Need any help?" I lit one of the demons ablaze and tossed it to the side so that Asher could finish the last line of his drawing. "Thank you." He stepped back and pulled me aside as a monster of equal size to the demon in the pit came circling from the ground in a whirlwind of sand and dirt. It was a fucking jackal. The Anubis-like form encircled its long, sinewy arms around the demon and pulled it clear from the ground, like someone unearthing a turnip, and tossed it into the side of the barn. Every single shadow that had been mid-fight paused rigidly and turned their attention towards their master.
No one pulls Apollyon from his pit.
The demon roared, and I watched as the shadows doubled in size and went back to fighting. The jackal charged Apollyon, and the sound they made when their bodies collided was like rolling thunder. The rumble signaled an endless darkness around us. The only light that had given us anything to go by was on the porch, and the bulb blew, along with the rest of the electricity inside the house. Even the moon seemed to lose its glow. This demon was going to fight on its own terms. "You need to release Violet," I barked at Asher as he wildly swung the rebar around him. "No, it isn't safe." He challenged me as I incinerated a demon that was sneaking up behind him. "She's our best bet, Asher. I know that you don't want anything to happen to her any more than the rest of us, but she is by far the strongest out of the group." I continued to fight as I spoke. Asher glanced over to the porch, and I could see Violet struggling even in the darkness. I could hear her crying out as we all fought without her. But he went on fighting and ignored what I had asked of him. I was going to have to do it myself. I ducked as the jackal came soaring over my head, and I rolled to the stairs before taking them all in one stride and rushed to help Violet.
"Oh my God, you're alive."
Violet sounded so relieved as I tried to pry up the fingers from the dozens of hands that gripped her body. "You were doing, I'm sure," I broke one of the hands from the wall, but Violet still wasn't budging.
I wasn't fast enough. Had I not been held in this death grip, I would have kept you from even falling at all.
Violet struggled against the hands on her body as I broke off another 2. I know you would have. I started lighting hands on fire and watched as they withered into ash, and Violet was finally freed.
Enough of this defiance. I want the 7th son, or I will blow this whole stage straight to hell.
Apollyon had reared himself in the air, and his menacing appearance had grown 3-fold. He was now a 2-headed dragon, and had nestled himself back in his hole as he spewed fire at Cain and Salome. But where the hell was Asher? You can have me, then. Asher's voice called down from the roof. I hadn't seen him pass me, but I noticed the thick chain that now hung from the top of the porch.
Ah, yes.
Apollyon roared. The 2-headed dragon snaked a neck closer to the porch, and I pulled Violet back before she had a chance to strike.
No, I'm not going to let him give himself up like this.
Violet fought my hold. If you stop all of this and go back to where you came, I will come quietly. But if you continue to try and kill us, I won't make this easy on you. Asher's voice bellowed from above.
That isn't how it works, 7. You are coming with me regardless.
Apollyon burped fire into the air as it leaned out from its hole.
I have to stop this.
Violet breathed and busted herself out of my vice grip. She went flying down the stairs, but Apollyon didn't even seem to notice her. None of the shadows did. Violet stood almost right up against the dragon, and even in the darkness I could see that snowy white hair of hers. She was going to fuck this demon's world up.
Subject number 001, Violet Eve. We needed light. If we were going to be able to see what we were doing, I was going to have to shed some light on the situation. Hundreds of tiny stars began streaking through the sky, becoming brighter and brighter as they descended. Their lights became so bright that it was almost blinding, but I knew that everyone could at least see now. The locusts began buzzing about in a panic, but it gave everyone the advantage of a fair fight. Apollyon began looking about him for the source of the light, but had been looking too high. "Down here, you miserable cunt!" I screamed, preparing myself to blow him from his hole. This demon was going to be much more difficult than Amun and nearly twice the size of Shax, but I wasn't afraid. One head craned to look down at me, and when I went to strike it in the face, the other caught me from behind and flung me into the air. I knew that when I came back down, I was going to make a crater the size of a damn planet in the ground. I slowed myself and landed almost gracefully as the first head came back for me. It was going to light me up like Christmas, but not before Adam struck it in the face with a fiery fist. I rolled out of the way and went after the second head while Cain barked orders for the hounds to attack its middle. Salome was having an easy time of rotting the locusts through, leaving sticky puddles of flesh in her wake.
Enough!
Apollyon crowed into the sky before slinging Adam in one direction and trying to toss me in the other.
I will not let you stop me.
I was now face to face with one of the dragon heads as it roared in my face, and I tried to figure out a way to destroy them before I was literally dead meat. It snapped at me, its large jaws catching my arm as it pulled me from the ground again. I screamed in agony as it tossed me into the air. It was going to eat me. Its jaws were open wide to catch its dinner, but instead it belched fire in my face, and I flailed in the air before crashing to the ground right next to it. Asher was standing below the demon, mindlessly drawing something in the dirt with a staff that had appeared out of nowhere. "Asher?" I spoke his name, but he didn't even hear me as he finished what appeared to be a giant seal in the crumbling dirt.
Give yourself to me, 7. Free yourself from this earthly realm and let us show you what it's like in the darkness.
One of Apollyon's heads slithered about to find Asher when I finally heard him speak.
I already know what the darkness is like.
Asher cracked the staff into the middle of the seal, and the line split with a scorching red glow as it ran its course, completing the drawing from the inside out. The ground began to rumble like an earthquake, and I heard Apollyon shriek. The locusts around us were being sucked into the pit like a vacuum, one by one. The dragon thrust its claws out and tried to get a grip on the dried-out earth, but the force created by the pit wasn't going to allow it to escape. Both heads roared as the suction increased, and it gouged trenches in the ground while being pulled backward. Then it just disappeared into the hole it had made in the driveway. The pit was still there, but everything else had gone back to where it came from.
What just happened?
Adam came jogging over to me, looking my body up and down for any signs of injury. My arm was bleeding pretty bad, but I'd live. Asher sent him back to hell, I replied. There were no signs of the sigil that had been on the ground, but I knew what I had seen.
Subject name, Asher 7 Cole. I don't know how I'm going to explain that giant sinkhole in the driveway to Sam. I lamented. We had all dragged ourselves back in the house and locked the doors, but we were sitting in total darkness. How are you going to explain why all the lights are out too? Adam's voice came from the corner of the room. I heard a snapping of fingers, and the corner lit up. I tossed him a few candles that I had blindly found in a kitchen drawer, and he lit them before passing them out in the room. Adam took a head count, but we were missing one. Where's Violet? Adam suddenly looked alarmed and bolted from his seat when a meek voice called out from the stairs. Violet was sitting at the bottom, holding tightly to her right arm. Blood was running down her skin and dripping onto the floor as she clutched the wound. Let me see. I rushed to her side, but she pulled her arm away.
I'm all right,
she breathed, wincing as my fingers grazed the arm. You're most certainly not. Adam was by her side now and insisting that she let us see. Violet removed her hand. Adam and I made a whistling sound simultaneously when we saw what was beneath it. 4 puncture marks in her forearm. It looked as if it had just grazed the bone before punching through to the other side. We need to get her to a hospital. I tore my shirt from my back and wrapped it snugly around her forearm.
I don't need a hospital. I'll be fine.
Violet forcefully took her arm back from me and cradled it close to her body. You'll bleed out, I insisted, but she just shook her head.
I can fix it. I just need to get my head on straight,
she mumbled, pushing herself up from the stairs before walking to the kitchen. I wanted to follow, but Adam stopped me. She can handle it. I've watched her come back from the dead before. Adam patted my shoulder before going to check on her. Anyone else injured? I asked as I watched Adam help Violet wash up. Just my pride, Kane scoffed. I think he was referring to his hole-in-one with the pit. What was that thing exactly? I never knew demons could look like that. Salome was still breathing heavily as she leaned into Kane. Apollyon, Violet spoke after turning off the faucet. Another biblical demon of epic proportions. Her eyes darted to me before she stepped forward towards the kitchen table. Kane's eyes went squinty in the dim light. Why do I know that name?
According to Pilgrim's Progress, Apollyon was said to be the son of the devil.
Violet sat down in the chair and rubbed the dirt and sweat from her face. And a king of an army of locusts. I would never have seen that's what they were until Violet lit up the sky. Kane now pointed out the obvious.
I saw them.
Violet tapped the tattoo on her forehead.
But that was all I could do at the moment.
She glared at me in the shadows. She was clearly mad at me, but for what reason? Are you mad that I protected you? I blurted, referring to my paint job on the outside of the house.
No, I'm mad because you kept me from helping everyone.
She slammed her hand down on the table. Why didn't you break free then? Couldn't she just make herself shift from the trap and be free from her shackles? I thought her powers could do anything.
I tried, but I couldn't. I don't know if it was because I was scared or what, but I was stuck until Adam freed me. She wouldn't make eye contact with me as she spoke. I'm sorry, but I was just trying to... I don't care. You didn't have my permission. I told you no, but you did it anyway.
She was really angry with me. Didn't know I needed to have your permission to save your life. I was being a smartass, but I meant it. I kept her safe from Apollyon, but she wanted to run out there and get herself hurt, like she did.
That isn't the point, Asher. I'm not a dainty flower waiting to be watered. I'm a fucking violet that adapts to its environment to survive. I've been aware of what I am longer than you have, and don't need anyone putting me high in a tower so that I don't get hurt.
The grating of Violet's chair on the hardwood made me cringe. She stormed off back to the room and closed herself inside. I was at a loss for words, and everyone else in the room seemed embarrassed for me. You didn't mean any harm, but you will learn real quick that Violet is her own person and doesn't like anyone to help her. Adam used air quotes as he spoke. I'll remember that for next time. I deflated and put myself in the recliner as we heard the roaring of a motorcycle coming up the drive. Adam raised his finger to stop me from getting up again. I'll go let Sam know there is a giant hole in his driveway so that he doesn't ride into it. Subject name, Adam Bodine. I met Sam in the drive and waved him to slow down before he got too close to the pit. He killed the engine and pulled his helmet from his head. Why is it so damn dark out here? Sam looked around him before his eyes finally settled on the hole. What the hell happened to my driveway? He yelled. We were really starting to overstay our welcome. We had a little scuffle while you were out. I tried to play it cool so that he didn't try to hit me. I'd had enough of that for one night. Don't tell me. Angels? Sam balled up his fists. Demons, actually. I laughed, and I swore that Sam cracked a smile. Is everyone all right? He patted me on the back as we walked back to the house. Either this man was the most understanding human being on the planet, or he was completely insane. We're good. Violet was injured, but she'll heal. I let the man inside his own house and followed behind. Demons cut my electricity too? He chuckled to himself out of irony. Something like that. I cleared him a space at the table as he waved to Asher. Salome and Kane were asleep on the couch, and Asher was almost there himself in the recliner, so I took the opportunity to speak with Sam alone. Can I talk with you about something? I know it's late, but... Sure you can. I need a drink anyway. Probably not going to sleep anytime soon. Sam scooted back from the table and grabbed a bottle of whiskey from the counter and headed out towards the front porch. How long have you known Asher? I asked Sam as he lit up a pipe. Since he was about 19. Helped him get his life straight after what those foster parents of his did to him. He's a good kid, just needed direction. Sam replied. Let me ask you another question. Did you know that 3 of those people that died after Asher tattooed them were his foster parents and brother? I needed an average human's opinion on this matter. I did. He was torn up about it and afraid to tell anyone. From what he's told me here recently, Violet thinks that maybe he wasn't aware that he was giving his ink any power. Sam spoke calmly. I guess Asher had been honest with at least one person, the person he trusted the most. Kind of like a subconscious revenge? I asked, not sure where Sam stood on the subject exactly. Possibly. They came in separately to the shop and he recognized them, but they didn't have any idea who he was. He tattooed them anyway because he needed the money, and he liked to pride himself on overcoming the problems in his life. Jonathan was another fluke, but he knew exactly who Asher was. He tried to convince him that he had straightened his life out and was keeping himself out of trouble, but it was obvious that he was tweaking the whole time. I think that maybe those painful memories triggered something inside him and led to their deaths. I don't know how any of this shit works, though. Sam may have not understood how it worked, but his reasoning made sense. Sometimes our powers were uncontrollable. I just wish he would have been honest with us from the start. We know how unpredictable all of this can be, and we would have taken his story into consideration before ever judging him. Violet would have made us, even if we didn't want to. I'll talk to him about it, but how'd you find out? Sam took a shot of whiskey and went back to his pipe. Doing my own digging. I like to have my bases covered so nothing surprises us. We have to deal with too many of those as it is. I responded, yawning. Smart boy. Know your adversary before you let them become a friend. Sam seemed to agree with me on that one, even if Violet didn't. Thanks for talking to me about this. It'll help me sleep tonight. I got up and stretched before ambling back to the door when Sam called out to me. Try and get some rest. We can talk about how you're going to fix my driveway in the morning.
Stop standing there like a creep and open the door.
Violet's voice called out to me as I waited silently in the hall, deliberating on whether or not to knock. I didn't know if you were asleep. I opened the door and let it shut quietly behind me.
I'm not. I can't.
Violet was curled up on the bedspread with a candle next to her on the nightstand as she stared out the window. You okay? I wasn't sure how to begin this conversation, but that seemed like a good opener.
Yes, my arm is almost healed up.
Violet sat up in the bed and held out her bare arm. The holes in the back of her forearm had closed, but the ones on the underside were just starting to scab over. I saw it toss you in the air, and I blasted it pretty hard in the gut, but it didn't do much but give it indigestion. I sat down next to her, and she scooted closer to me.
I figured that was you.
She nudged me with her shoulder as she stared through the window sill. You think maybe you were a little harsh on Asher? I asked her, and she sighed.
Do you think I was?
Honestly, no. He doesn't understand how important your skills are to the team. How important you are, period. I corrected myself.
We have more experience than he does, but I'm tired of sugarcoating myself. What he did wasn't saving me. It could have harmed all of us. Save me if I am in peril, in need of saving, but don't keep me from fighting.
She explained herself, but I already knew that. I knew that Violet had to make her own mistakes and do things by herself sometimes, but I hoped she knew that I was there to catch her if she fell. He'll get it. I turned myself around in the bed so she and I were facing the same way. I talked to Sam about the information we dug up about Asher's foster family. He knew that they were the ones killed, but he doesn't think that it was intentional. Asher confessed to Sam because he was afraid and trusted him over anyone. I understand why he kept it a secret from us, but I told Sam how important honesty was in this situation. I felt more settled now over the Asher ordeal, but I still had to keep myself on guard.
I'm sorry that I dove so recklessly into this. I didn't do my research and just let myself be too much of a bleeding heart. Asher is a good man, but I blindly believed that without verifying it first.
Violet chastised herself for letting her emotions get in the way of her logic. It's okay to get emotional sometimes and let yourself get wrapped up, but you see where you possibly made a mistake and you recognized it. In a way, we were both wrong and right. We didn't use our brains and our empathy in this situation. I put my arm around her and pulled her close.
This is all a learning experience, I guess. We may make mistakes, but we learn from them.
She spoke into my shirt as I nodded my head.
I feel better now that this is all out in the open, but we have to tell Asher that we know and make it even. You want to just sleep in here tonight since all the comfortable spots are taken? I don't mind.
Violet pushed away from me and curled back up on her side. Normally I would have declined, but I was too tired and all I wanted to do was sleep. The hardwood floors didn't look too inviting. Thanks. I laid myself out fully clothed and soon was in a deep sleep. We would handle everything else in the morning.
July 17th, 2016. Subject number 001. Violet Eve. I woke up to the squeaking of the door and let my third eye adjust to see who was standing there. Asher had this look on his face, and I realized that I was pressed up against Adam's warm body.
I just got up and was going to tell you that it was almost 5 p.m. and you shouldn't sleep too much longer, but it looks like maybe you need it.
He just stood there, not moving a muscle. What? I pushed off of Adam and tried to clear my head from the fog of a nightmare.
I know that I upset you, but I didn't think that you'd try to get back at me for it.
Asher almost looked hurt. I then realized what he meant. Seeing me in bed with Adam had him making assumptions. Nothing happened. He didn't have any other place to sleep. I swung my legs off the bed and tossed a shirt over my head.
Nothing?
Asher was disbelieving. Nothing. I was upset with you, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to run off and jump in bed with someone else. We were just sleeping. I shuffled my bare feet across the floor and planted a kiss on his cheek. He knocked on the door and startled Adam awake before escorting me down the hall.
King got a phone call from Josiah. He said that if things looked good on this end, he wanted you all to come back home.
Asher was clearly upset that I was going to have to leave. I need to talk to you about something, and then I will call Josiah and work some things out. I went for my phone that was plugged into the wall and saw that I had a missed call from him.
About what? Why I didn't tell you about my foster family and their deaths?
The question from him stopped me dead in my tracks. Who told you? I knew that Adam hadn't, but someone must have said something.
Sam. He told Adam that he'd talk to me. Do you think less of me?
Asher looked like he was afraid that I would run screaming from the house. Did you kill them on purpose?
No, never.
Then I don't think any less of you. I almost killed Henri, Adam, and his friend Nate the first night that I changed. I was in a blind rage and I couldn't get it under control. Slaughtered an angel the next day without even really knowing how I did it. It isn't as if we had these powers our whole life with someone to teach us how to use them. I can't fault you for something that was out of your control. I came to embrace him and I felt his body relax in my arms.
You should call Josiah.
Asher urged me.
I'm going to go get the dragon out of bed.
He wandered off down the hall and I hit redial on the missed call. Josiah, Asher said you called. I leaned into the counter as I spoke.
Yes, I think it may be time for you all to come home. After what happened last night, I think we may need to leave this Seven character alone.
There Josiah went, being too overprotective without getting the full story. We talked with him and his friend Sam. He confessed that he had tattooed them, but swore up and down that he hadn't consciously done anything. Sam knew this whole time, but Asher was afraid to tell us. I think he was just like the rest of us in the beginning. He had no idea what his powers were capable of. I defended him for the millionth time.
I'm still not sure. Maybe you should bring him back with you so we can feel him out. Either he is one of us or he needs to be stopped from hurting anyone else.
Josiah was severe, but I could tell he was starting to lean more to my side. I think that's a good idea. I'll let everyone know, get our things packed, and then head back to New Orleans. I was rather happy with this decision.
See you when you get here.
Josiah got off the phone and I hurried to tell the others. We were getting what we needed as a team, and I was getting what I wanted on a personal level. After what had happened the night before, we were going to really need someone with his skills, and I was going to have to figure out why the demons were calling him the Seventh Son. It was better to keep him by our side. That's all for tonight's episode. If you'd like to support the archives, you can do so by visiting our Buy Me a Coffee at buymeacoffee.com/InkDrinkerArchives. If you're into witchy apothecary goodies, you can support us by purchasing some wares from our shop, inkdrinkerapothecary.storeenvy.com. From loose-leaf teas to delightful perfume oils and mystery goods like our blind date with the book boxes, there is pretty much something for every strange and unusual creature out there. You can also find the archives on most social media platforms at Ink Drinker Archives or the Occult Archives with author E.M. Moon on Facebook. As always, I'll leave you with this reminder. Lock your doors, salt your windows, and remember, it's okay to sleep with the lights on.